In today's class of structure, we'll be learning about the followings. Linear structure, in which we'll be learning about monocolumn, coupled column, flat slab with drop panel or head. And then after we'll go to brace frame and then surface structure. Let's begin with linear structure. So what is linear structure? Structural member having a length that dominates its other two dimensions. So let's look at the column over here. So it is having this as the length, which is dominating this and this dimension. Look at here. This height is dominating overall girth or the width over here. So this type of structure is called linear structure. Outside the shell of the building, you can see highly decorative architectural columns are given in combination with the arches over here. So such type of structure is used not for the look or aesthetics, but also for greater support to the main framework of the building. Along with that, it is used to control the climatic factors such as rain, ventilation, sunlight, etc. These columns are also linear because it is dominating over this and this dimension. Let's move to the next. This is highly decorative architectural columns which is being supported by the head over here. So heads are used when there is no beam required to support the structural slab. In this column, this is using the zigzag pattern, which is getting the load from the beams. You can see over here, these beams are putting load onto these columns, and this column is bifurcating from the point of the load and bringing down, splitting into two. So this is happening repeatedly. This is another example in which all steel column has been used in combination. So this is taking load from the upper slab rather than from this slab which you can see over here. In this image we can understand these are different floors in which this part is the substructure and this is the part of the superstructure. So some part lies inside the foundation and some part, most of the part, on the upper side in the superstructure. Here these columns are connected with the beams and these columns are free inside the foundation. So these are indication of column C1, C2, C3, C4 and C5. So C4 and C5 are of the same type and these three are connected inside the foundation itself. And B1, B2, B3, B4, these are the types of beams has been used. These names are varied depending on the sizes of the columns or the beam respectively. Now let's understand in monocolumn case number A, in which single column is used to support multi-storied building without having any outer column. You can look over here, there is no outer column, means there is no column on the corners. But on the other hand, in case B, single column is supporting multi-storied building. At the same time, there's outer columns are there on the corners, which you can see over here. There's another big change you can see, that in the center you have column, along with that you have these sloping beams which are taking loads from these slabs and the columns and transferring it to the central column, which is bigger and massy. So these are the two typical monocolumn configurations you can see in the building. This is the example in which you can see we have one central column and then we have outer columns. and these outer columns are coming down like this, and then this beam, this cantilever beam, is taking load towards the central column. This column and this beam, you can observe that here you have lesser dimension and here you have greater dimension. So this is making a sloping face over here, so that the load of the superstructure could be transferred easily to the central column. We have just talked about this case B, in which we have central column along with outer columns and this configuration of the beam. The same thing is happening over here. You can have a look on this image. Let's move to this. This is again having central column, and whether we are having the outer columns or not, this is not quite visible, but it seems to be it is having outer columns, and these are acting as the cantilever beam, which is taking the surrounding outer load towards the center of the column. And if we look at the monument, which is called Vijayastam, this is in Chittorgarh, Rajasthan. This is also the example of monocolumn. So this is not the modern phenomena. This has been used in some monuments, old monuments. This is another example of monocolumn, and these structures are being supported on the main central column, and further it can have any kind of structure over here in the form of a building, or maybe this is going to be used for just decorative purpose. There will be some hanging garden, there could be some facilities over here, there could be also the fountain, water fountain. Any kind of structure can be created being supported from the central column. This is another example in which you can see this part of the building is being supported by one single column over here. And there's another example of the monocolumn. This is Larsen and Toubro office in Chennai, which is having one central column over here, and then you can see a series of beams over here, and these are the further columns taking loads on the outer edge, outer beam, and this load is getting transferred through this beam to the central main beam. So this is stunning, beautiful architecture of Larsen Toubro. And then we will move to the next one. This topic is called coupled column. This kind of architecture has been used in old massy heavy architecture. So to support very heavy upper part in tabulature, generally combination column has been used. So this makes the overall structure sturdy. At the same time, it takes greater load to the foundation. And from the aesthetic point of view, these columns look greater. These columns look really beautiful. Coupled column can be seen in this building also. You can see these two columns are coming together, combined, and taking load down towards the ground or the foundation. This is having two use. One is to support the overall massy heavy slab, which is having heavy entablature, and at the same time it gives really beautiful aesthetic value to the facade of the building. This is another example in which these two columns are further shaped into arch, semicircular arch. So this kind of architecture can be really very effective in creating classic facade of any kind of building. This is again a monumental building in which coupled columns has been used. So this Jharokha is having so many clustered column over here. So this kind of stuff has been used earlier and it can be copied in today's maybe fusion work or purely classic work of modern time building. Now let's understand how slabs or structural slabs are supported by the column. One combination is called wherein we have flat slab which is resting directly on the column. So you can see in the image that this slab is getting supported by this heavy column over here. But in this case you have flat slab, structural slab, which is being supported by drop panel, and further this drop panel is transferring load to the column. And in this one you can see flat slab is being supported by head column, means column which is having head. And this is the combination one. This slab, flat slab, is getting support from drop panel and column head. So this combination is better than this or this. So you can see this is the weakest one, and then after this is stronger than this, and this is stronger than this, and this one is the strongest one. So these combinations are used when you don't want drop beams, means the beams which are coming down maybe 1 foot, 1.5 feet, maybe 2 feet, because this reduces your headroom. Suppose you are standing over here, and if the ceiling height is 10 feet, and if you're dropping down 1.5 feet drop beam, so you have 8.5 feet space, and if you further make false ceiling, so hardly you'll be having 7.5 feet to 8 feet height. So in certain cases one can use a drop panel or the column head, or maybe the combination of drop panel and column head. Look at it. This is having drop panel. This column is getting attached to drop panel, and further this is attaching to the structural slab. And you can see this design is not having beams over here, because beam is being replaced by this drop panel, which is taking care of the bending moment and taking load down to the column and further to the ground. When you are going to repair or do further reinforcement of the old structure, so such kind of stuff can be done. Let me make you understand how to do it. Suppose you have a column like this which is existing on site, so you can do what? You can have increased thickness of the column, and finally you can have the bars like this which is being tied to this jali work. Obtrusion of the column is going to take the load from the structure slab through the drop panel to this external attached extra part of the column. So this will come like this, and your old structure will further live a long life. So this is another example of drop panel and headed column. Now let's understand a braced frame. Braced frame is very important structural element that uses beams and columns to provide strength and rigidity to a building, and resist the lateral loads like wind and earthquake. And you can see these are the different combinations. In combination A, you can see this is scissor-like pattern. This is arrow-like pattern. This is inverted V, and this is V shape. So we have basically 4 different combinations. There could be multiple combinations depending on the requirement. So cross, arrow, and then you have V and inverted V. Let's see further examples of this. So you can see this is the V-shaped bracing which is done in steel sections. In this image you can see that cross has been used. You can see in all these cross has been used, but in this building you can see V-shaped bracing has been used. This is again the example of the cross bracing. Now we'll learn about surface structure. What is surface structure? So a structural member having a length and width, that dominates its thickness. So what it is trying to say, that surface structure will be the structure which is having negligible thickness, which is being dominated by the length and the width. So these roofs can be considered as the surface structure, whether it is horizontal, sloping, curvy, it doesn't matter. So these types of structure, the covering of the building, will be called as surface structure. Let's see further. This is again the example of the surface structure. This building is having very unique feature because it's most of the facade part is being covered by surface structure. Means roof is terminating on the half part of the building. At times it may go to the ground. So such structure requires huge space to construct, but this is highly recommended because this can be earthquake resistant kind of building, and it can give you a different type of aesthetic value wherein you don't see walls but you see much of the roofings, sloped roofings, and this can have different angles or angular projection towards the ground or the mid part of the building. So this kind of building generally, you generally don't find anywhere, but this can be another example. Why I'm showing you such type of photos, images to you, it is not just to tell you that what is called surface structure, but to tell you that such type of architecture also exists, or you can create yourself to make your identity as an interior architect in the market. Let's move to the next one, in which you can see these are the sloping roof, which is very much common, and you must have studied in the types of the roofs in which we have studied such type of surface structure. Hope you have understood the overall concept. Thank you very much for watching this video.